Grand Rising Kings and Queens, do you believe in God's judgment? Do you believe gods of Black American is working against white America? Do you believe, or do you know, or do you think God of Black American is punishing white America through Donald Trump?
What if I told you? What if I told you that everything is actually in reverse? That Yah's chosen people are the ones on earth who are living as cursed. That the first shall be the last, and the last shall be the first. And the American state and the American church can be institutions that can keep us in the dirt. Know your worth. What if I told you that he's the God of the oppressed, sent his son down in the flesh just to deliver the sinner from his mess? What if I told you that Christ came for the prostitute, drug dealer, and slave? You know, the people they told us to keep away. What if I told you that Christ ain't a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, chilling while you're sinning kind of guy, passive on oppression, drenched in privilege for the white? It's the exact opposite. American Christian, open your eyes. Do not conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And you know what saddens me? The fact that the black community has been overlooked and pushed aside, and even lied to about their true identity. According to the Bible, genealogy, and history, the so-called African American are the true Hebrew Israelites. I hope you heard me clearly. Because this ain't a joke, this ain't no extremist movement. This is deep and we have no time for games. So what if I told you the truth? Would you call me insane? Let's see. To my brethren, all my black sisters and brothers, Isaiah said he leave our name from being called the chosen. That's why in this country we're only known as Negroes and coloreds, but we're Israelites. And the people in the power knew that the Bible is our true history, so they painted Jesus white and made laws that prevented us from knowing how to read. But nowadays, they just keep us hypnotized by the dopest beats, so you can't even see the tactics that are keeping you asleep.
Now, I'm going to play to you a video of Shahid Bolsen talking about how America is being destroyed. Americans are being punished. And all these black Americans want America. They want them. So I'm just diving into something spiritual, political, and historical. Something that many people feel, but they are scared to talk about it. The God of black Americans is punishing or has punished white America through Donald Trump. Because what white America thought was their savior has turned out to be their judgment. And today I'm going to explore why I'm saying so. But before I do that, I want to watch this clip of Shahid Bolsen. It has something to talk about. It has something to talk about. Let's watch this and then we come back.
This is all denied. And the worst thing you can do, if you're talking about it as on an individual level, if you anthropomorphize the nation, as I'm doing, the worst thing you can do to someone who has a split personality is to confront them about their condition. Because they've built their whole way of coping in the world, their whole way of functioning in the world is based on these two elements of their identity never meeting, never being reconciled, always being compartmentalized. What needs to happen is for it to be confronted, it needs to be reconciled, it needs to be dealt with. They're never willing to do that. So you look at this reality of who they are, what they've done, and how they have built their the psyche that they have, and then the ethos that they desperately need to maintain. Put all of that as the context for Black History Month. Which is your obligation in Black History Month, because this is an obligation that is being put on black people in America. This isn't an opportunity, this isn't a celebration, this is an obligation being put on black people, that you will agree to contain the totality of your history in 28 days in February. And what you will talk about during those 28 days in February is not going to make us too uncomfortable. Your obligation is that you will go along with the maintenance of our fake ethos, which requires you to be very, very careful about what you say about our deeds and our actions and what actually our psyche is. And this is a manifestation of that psyche, of that dominating psyche, of that oppressive psyche that has built the whole, this dominating and oppressive psyche that the ethos that they built is designed to deny and to pretend is not the case. The ethos that they built, of course, is not as oppressors but as liberators, not as enslavers but as saviors, as redeemers, not as punishers. The ethos that they built is the complete opposite of what their history shows they are and what they've been. And obviously you can never change, you can never become even the aspirational ethos, because that's all you can call it. The American ethos is an aspirational ethos at best. That's giving them benefit of the doubt that they aspire to be liberators, they aspire to be redeemers, they aspire to be saviors, they aspire to be good and righteous and freedom loving and fighters for justice and so forth, defenders of rights and all of that. We can, benefit of the doubt, say that they aspire to be that. But when you are applying it to yourself as if you are that, and as if there's any evidence whatsoever that you are that, then you'll never be it. So even if it is an aspiration, if you're claiming that you have already achieved it, well, then you never will achieve it. But they put Black History Month, a parentheses in the year when the totality of the African American experience has to be contained within this 28 days, and it has to be palatable. And the whole purpose of it is actually to celebrate us for giving you Black History Month. You know, and the same goes for all of these, in my opinion anyway, my unqualified opinion, the federal holidays, like they just gave it to Juneteenth, I think last year or the year before.
Within the past 2 years, it's become a federal holiday.
Federal holiday, right? MLK Day, Martin Luther King Day, and so on. To me, this is absolutely, from again, my opinion, this is absolutely grotesque. The federal government granting these holidays or establishing these holidays, to me, is like the killer coming to the funeral of the one whom he killed and giving flowers to the widow. That's what these holidays represent to me, in my opinion. And I'm always reminded when Black History Month comes along, or when there's Juneteenth, or when it's Martin Luther King Day, or what have you. Well, I think that the useful thing about Trump is that he can package the dismantling of American empire as the building of American empire. That's what he's doing. Because you have to sell to your demographic. And Americans are not the most mature, the most realistic, the most responsible people in the world, the most well acquainted with history and so forth. So you cannot possibly sell America's necessary downsizing and the managed erosion of America and the hollowing out of America as, you know, we've made a lot of bad choices for a very long time. And we've only ever really made short-term plans for the future. So it turns out that there's a lot of unavoidable, necessary changes that have to be made at your expense. You can't really sell that to the American public. You can't tell the American public that consequences are a thing. That demographic of political consumers simply cannot compute a message like that. Because look, what Trump is going to do, what he is doing, and what he will do, these are all things that were going to happen anyway, with or without him. He's just the one who's selling it to you as a good thing. That's his job. You know, he's like the guy at a company who's designated as the one to deliver the bad news to you that you're going to be let go. And you designate him for that job because he has a way of presenting it to you. He has a way of presenting to you, you being fired as the greatest opportunity of your life, you know? All the new horizons that you're going to be able to pursue and so on. That's Trump. That's Trump's job. You know, America has been stuffing balloons up their sleeves for a very long time and telling everyone that they're muscles. But now even the balloons are deflating. The great American hoax is over. And Trump is there to oversee the dismembering of American empire. The US is going to be isolated, it's going to withdraw, and it's going to be non-competitive globally. And like I said, this is all unavoidable. This would have happened with or without Trump. You've simply come to the end of your life cycle as a hegemonic superpower. And the decay and the decomposition that will follow is just part of the natural process. Trump can't be blamed for that, and he can't be given credit for any of this. But his job is to make you think that none of it's happening, even while it's happening right in front of your face. This is what Trump's main job is. Because look, for example, drill, baby, drill, right? Make America energy self-sufficient, et cetera, fire up all of the dormant oil wells and so forth in West Texas and so on, while simultaneously asking OPEC to lower oil prices, which of course means asking OPEC to increase production. Okay. The way that goes is increase production by OPEC, and if they do it, by the US as well, okay, then the oil price drops, and cheap oil floods the market, out of sync with demand, driving the price down even further. Now the price is too low for it to even be profitable for American producers to drill, to refine, or to extract. You understand? American oil producers need for oil to be at a minimum of $40 per barrel for it to even be worth it. For it to even be worth it to drill and extract and refine and so forth. Meanwhile, OPEC can still make a profit at just $10 a barrel. So you understand, America cannot play the oil game with OPEC. OPEC has the capacity to ramp up oil production if they want to, anytime they want to. They can ramp up oil production, they can increase production to a level within just 90 days that America couldn't reach even in 5 years. In other words, OPEC can decimate the American oil and gas sector anytime they want. The only reason they don't do that is because they want to maintain price stability for their own benefit, for their own reasons. They would rather have oil at $70 a barrel or $100 a barrel rather than $10 a barrel. So they choose to allow America to stay in the game. And that's the only reason. But if you're going to ramp up oil production on your end, well, then you better hope that OPEC responds by cutting production on their end just to stabilize the price. Because if they don't, if they respond in kind and they do what you do, and they also ramp up oil production, and then they drive the price of oil down to their minimum profit level, well, that will nuke America's whole oil industry. Plants, drilling sites, refineries, all of that's going to shut down. Tens of thousands of jobs will just disappear overnight. And for every one job in the oil and gas sector, there's at least 2 or 3 jobs that are indirectly related to that. So you were looking at potentially hundreds of thousands of jobs lost by drill, baby, drill. Not to mention, when that happens, no one in the private sector is going to invest in the oil sector anymore. So you see, no more exports to Europe, no more exports anywhere, no more oil exports, energy exports. Meanwhile, you're going to abandon renewable energy, clean energy, and so on. The Green New Scam, as Trump says, he's very much against that. And at the same time, you have the UAE and you have Saudi Arabia investing hundreds of billions of dollars in the U.S. In energy-intensive businesses in the United States. I mean, Trump said it himself. If oil companies drill themselves out of business, I don't give a damn. That's what he said. So you see how the rhetoric, how the marketing actually sells the opposite of what the policy outcome is actually going to be. I don't think for a second that Trump doesn't know that. I think he knows that. No one who's putting these policies in place doesn't know what the outcomes will be. And that's why the policies are being pursued, because they want to achieve those outcomes, those very outcomes. But you can't sell that to the electorate. You can't tell the American people, you know, we, your private sector overlords, are no longer tied to the success or the prosperity or the stability of the American economy. We have global interests, not national interests. And so we've decided to drive the U.S. into energy bankruptcy as quickly as possible. And maybe then we can sell all of America's oil and gas assets to Saudi Arabia or to China or what have you for pennies. You can't tell the American people that. So instead, you say, Trump says, we're going to drill, baby, drill. We're going to drill, you know, better, stronger, faster than anyone. We're going to produce more oil than anyone else in the world, and so on and so on and so on. We're number one, you know, and everyone cheers. Everyone applauds. while the oxygen is being drained from the room. And let me tell you, that's exactly what's going on. The last time Trump was in office, Saudi Arabia and Russia collaborated to flood the global oil market during COVID-19, no less. And the U.S., under Trump, the U.S., the media, portrayed this as a price war between Saudi Arabia and Russia. But it was transparently done. It was transparently undertaken by Russia and Saudi Arabia, specifically to undermine the American oil sector, the American oil industry. It completely crashed the oil price, making oil production completely unviable for the U.S., for U.S. producers, okay? Trump had good relations with Russia. He had good relations with Saudi Arabia, still does. And I think it's fair to say that this was a three-way collaboration, not just between Russia and Saudi Arabia. Trump was involved. And now Trump already wants to do it again within his first week in office. I don't think OPEC is going to go along with it, to be honest. Not right now. Why should they? You said drill, baby, drill, so you go ahead and do that. You go ahead. You drill. But we are not going to initiate a crash in the oil price. We need the money right now. We have projects. So you have to take Trump seriously, but never at his word. Never take him literally. But do take him seriously, because he's a mascot for a faction of power that needs to be taken very seriously. The A National OCGFC, owners and controllers of global financialized capital. They're essentially the real unipolar superpower of the world. And Trump is their hatchet man in America. Now, generally speaking, this is going to be very good for the Muslim world. Generally speaking, it's going to be good for the Muslim world and the global South more broadly. Yes, it is. But I know that things are going to get very hard for you in the U.S. Things are going to get very hard for you in the West overall. Now, most people around the world, in the global South, they'll react to that news the same way that someone would react to hearing about a serial killer getting shanked in prison. You know, he had it coming. That's how most people feel, to be honest. But I know that most people in the West already have it hard. I know that most people in the West are actually already suffering. And I know what it's like to live in America. It's not easy. And I know that just because the consequences that you may suffer may be the result of your own actions, that doesn't make the consequences any easier to endure. I know it's going to be hard, especially when you're suffering the consequences of actions that were taken by your elites, not necessarily the actions of the common people. So I know this is hard to take, and it's going to be hard to take. Now, again, let me reiterate, this is not about Trump. It's not about Trump. The isolation, the degradation of America was going to happen anyway. It had to happen. This is just the necessary course of the logic of Western predatory capitalism. Just like Gorbachev wasn't really the one who destroyed the Soviet Union, he just oversaw the inevitable destruction, self-destruction of the Soviet Union because it had run its course. America has run its course. And when I say Western predatory capitalism, those adjectives are important because it's not even really about capitalism in and of itself. It really mostly has to do with the culture and the civilizational peculiarities of the West. They don't act like that because of capitalism. Their capitalism acts like this because of the way they are. You understand? And in fact, it's because of the way they are, that they even approach capitalism, trade, and so forth, and business the way they do. Their particular version of capitalism. And it's because of them, and because of the way they are, and because of their approach to capitalism, that the A National OCGFC even are a thing. And it's also because of this that their own societies are now on the chopping block. It's because of the way they are. But that's a topic for another day. The point is, this is something that has to happen. It's something that has to happen. It's something that had to happen. It's something that will happen. And it's going to happen, no matter what. No matter whether it's Trump or anyone else. Anyone who says, for example, well, that's what you get for voting for Trump, you know, or you should have voted for Harris. Well, I mean, you're so thoroughly indoctrinated and participating in the deception and the deflection of that system that you yourself are just as much a cause for the collapse of the United States as anyone else that you blame for it. You know, you created a class of A National elites, oligarchical elites, whose private profit interests are no longer connected to your own economy. You did that. They're not connected to any productive activity. They're not connected to any nationality. They're not connected to your standard of living, not to your stability, not to your safety, your prosperity, your success as a nation or anything. And that class of private sector powers became essentially a nation unto themselves, like I've said many times. A nation that transcends borders. It transcends national interests. They don't have any interests except their own interests. You created that, and you celebrated that, in fact. You still celebrate it. Never realizing that they would inevitably sacrifice you for their own profit interests, the same way that they've sacrificed millions of people outside your country. You know, you created this psychopathic class of predators. And you expected them to never bite the hand that feeds them, even though The hand that feeds them has always been feeding them hands, you know? Now they can't tell the difference between the food and the feeder anymore. It's all just flesh to them. You can't raise a wolf on human flesh and expect him to distinguish between the human you are feeding him from the human who is feeding him. Eventually, he doesn't see you as his master or his owner anymore. He only sees you as food. Well, you raised the wolf on the flesh of the global south, and it turns out you taste just the same. Yes, wolves don't care if it's dark meat or light meat. They'll chew you up either way. Look, for decades, the military-industrial complex, the MIC, in America, it was a towering giant in America, in the U.S. It was the driver of the economy. They shaped policies at home and abroad. But today, there's a decline in its dominance, and that's been coming for a while. It's no longer the sole engine of the American economy. It's no longer the most important engine of the economy or the global economy. Now, this change wasn't due to any great moral awakening or some newfound sense of conscience. No, it's the result of systemic shifts within the American economy, popular fatigue over endless wars, corruption and fraud within the military-industrial complex, and of course the rise of the national OCGFC. The U.S. economy has diversified. I mean, decades ago, in the 50s, say, weapons and military technology was central for America's economic growth. But today, other industries, technology, finance, obviously healthcare and so on, it surpasses that. And of course, globalization shifted the focus from building tanks and jets to dominating digital platforms, international markets, and so on. Then came the end of the Cold War. The end of the Cold War was the big shift when the Soviet Union collapsed. You know, then the supposed existential threat that justified the immense military budgets and spending and so on, that disappeared. That threat disappeared. I mean, you tried to come up with new threats, terrorism, war on drugs, what have you, but none of these threats really could justify the scale of investment that was needed to keep the military-industrial complex, you know, influential. And like I said, the public became tired of wars in the 2000s. Afghanistan, it drained the American public, emotionally, financially, politically, and people began to question the wisdom of pouring trillions and trillions of dollars into conflicts that only ever resulted in spreading chaos and destruction. Not to mention you have rampant fraud and corruption in the military-industrial complex. You have overcharging, you have magically disappearing funds, you know, that were handed over to defense contractors. They've misplaced enough money. The military-industrial complex, defense contractors, have misplaced enough money to house every homeless person in America and educate every child. They charge so much for one weapon that China could probably build a dozen. Hated them for it. We salute them. You know, even those with no faith, who genuinely struggle for the rights of their people. We salute them. It's a part of our faith. It's a part of our religion to appreciate those who genuinely stand for justice, even if we know that their vision is never going to be complete without Islam. So if you want to be proud of Ibrahim Traore because of just his skin color, go ahead. If you want to be proud of him because of his country or his continent of origin, go ahead. But we're proud of him because of his belief. He's our brother in belief. We're proud of him because of his faith. And anyone who wants to deny that or deny us that, well, you're just petty and foolish and ideologically shackled. Ibrahim Traore led a coup against a government that was subservient to its foreign masters. You know, there's been many, many coups across the continent, but usually those just replaced one neo-colonial agent with another, usually. But Ibrahim Traore is different. He's not just changing the government. He is uprooting the whole system of neo-colonial domination, and he's succeeding. He's understood what many people have failed to grasp, which is that independence is meaningless if you don't sever the control of the owners and controllers of global financialized capital. He's understood that security is a myth as long as it depends on the military patronage of your former colonizers. And he's understood that sovereignty is impossible under the shadow of Western tutelage. He's not merely a head of state. Ibrahim Traore is the revolutionary archetype of the 21st century. He was forged in the reality of Western-backed insurgency and Western economic warfare and propaganda. Because, you know, today the fight for freedom is not just waged by armies anymore, but by narratives and by resource policies and by alliances and by collective sovereignty. Traore has made the choice to look towards Russia and Turkey and towards other new centers of power in the multipolar world. That's strategic. Not because they're perfect allies, but because he recognizes the necessity of breaking the Western stranglehold on Burkina Faso. This is pragmatism in service to principle. This again is the methodology of Middle Nation. It's engagement without submission, cooperation without subjugation. It's trade-offs without selling out. He also understands, crucially, that Africa's liberation cannot be rented from outside. It has to be rooted in the reclamation of Africa's own wealth. You know, his moves to exert control over Burkina Faso's gold, building indigenous defense capacity and food sovereignty, these aren't just political decisions. These are acts of civilizational self-respect. It's a declaration that Africa's children will no longer be bled dry for the enrichment of Western imperial capital. We see Ibrahim Traore as a brother, not simply because of his faith, but also because of his fight. Because he embodies the spirit of the Quranic guidance to stand firmly for justice, even if it is against your own selves, even if it is against those who are in power, and even if it is against the odds. Burkina Faso isn't just a battleground today for the Burkinabe people. It's the front line in a global struggle for liberation. What Ibrahim Traore is doing is echoing in the Sahel, in Niger, in Mali, across Africa, across the Ummah, across the global south, and across the world. Every oppressed people around the world can now look to Burkina Faso and to Ibrahim Traore and say liberation looks like it's actually possible. But obviously, the global order trembles at the prospect that anyone is going to follow his example. They're afraid of his courage and his clarity and his defiance in the face of Western power and Western threats. And they should be afraid of that. They should tremble because they know the jig is up. But we know that when they get scared, they get dangerous. And Ibrahim Traore is under severe threat. There's already been something like 20 attempts on his life since coming to power. They just stopped a coup from happening last week, organized by the Americans and by the French, right there in the French embassy. Because a free Africa is just something that that old wolf can't take. You know, they've been keeping Africa in the past for so long that they know that if they let Africa get away from them, then they're going to be the ones who are consigned to history. The chains that have been holding Africa down all this time are also the only things holding the West up. So now America has said that they want to arrest him. You know, they've already tried to take him out more than once, like I said. Now they're trying to smear him.
Welcome back. Now, I'm just going to rant according to what I think, according to my thinking on this topic. White America was built off the broken backs, blood, and brilliance of black people. From 1619, when the first enslaved Africans were forced into American soil, the land of America has fed itself on black labor, black genius, and black trauma. I want you to feel my reason, listen to my reason why I'm saying that God of black Americans is punishing white America. The country of America has fed through black people. Enslavement, Jim Crow, police brutality, mass incarceration, economic exclusion, and medical racism. I'm not talking about isolated events. I'm talking about a system. And this system has refused to repent. It hasn't just failed to apologize, but it continues to abuse. For centuries, black Americans, especially the deeply spiritual, have cried out to God, cried for justice, cried for truth, cried for change. And guess what? God had them. Oh yes, God had black Americans. Do you know black Americans are the original Jews of the Bible, or Israelites of the Bible? Because of the story that is going on in black Americans' life, it's the one that Israelites went through it. Black Americans cried to God, and God listened to them, but not the way white American expected. Not with fire falling from the sky, not with earthquakes or wars. No, the punishment came disguised as Trump, disguised in suit, with a red tie, waving a flag that said, "Make America Great Again," Donald J. Trump. Now, white America chose Trump. That's not a lie. They didn't even stumble into him. They weren't tricked. They wanted Donald Trump. In fact, in 2016, the majority of white voters, male and female, both of them, majority of them, they voted for Trump in 2016. Why? Because he promised to take America back to a time when they were on top. Make America great again, to a time when they were super or supremacy. And black people knew their places that time. He said the quiet part out loud. He fed into white fear. He laughed at racism. He disrespected black cities, black countries, black leaders. See how he embarrassed a South African president just recently. That's Donald Trump. Trump didn't just harm black people, but he destabilized the entire nation. The jobs lost, global respect gone, a pandemic everywhere, division, white on white, political welfare. The same man they thought will bring power back to them brought chaos. And many of us are watching. This was divine judgment. Now, coming to spiritual, I'm not too good in spiritual, but coming to think of it, the God of black Americans is not the God of passivity. We didn't survive slavery by accident. Black Americans did not survive slavery by accident. Black Americans didn't make it through lynching, segregation, and state violence by luck, but it's through the faith, through ancestors. The faith, the ancestors, spiritual power has always carried black people. When I say God is real, I am not talking about a church performance, a church miracle. I'm seeing black Americans, I'm seeing what they have gone through. I can read what they have gone through. For hundreds of years, white America got away with crimes against black humanity. But the ancient truth remains, you reap what you sow. They sowed hate, they sowed racism, they sowed genocide, and now they are reaping confusion, reaping political collapse. The empire is cracking, is breaking apart. They are reaping instability. Trump was never a mistake. He was an answer to generations of black cries, an instrument of judgment, not just for what America has done, but for what it is or it continues to do. Black people want everyone. Black people want white people. And this is the part that makes this even deeper. Black Americans want the country, from civil rights leaders to everyday voters. Black people told America what Trump represented. Black Americans said it clearly that he is dangerous, he is divisive, he is not for the people. But America didn't listen. Why? Because it has never listened to black wisdom. They laughed at black people every day. They mocked them. They dismissed them. Even when black preachers, black scholars, and black youth said that this man will destroy this very system you build, they still ran to him. They ran as make America great again. Has America ever been great? What is the point of making America great again? Because we know America, it was built in the blood of black people. The things they did to black people. Do you want to go there? Is that making America great again? And that's the question I was asking myself. America is broken right now. Just look. I know America is broken. White Americans are turning against each other. Conservations fighting. Conservative fighting conservatives. Liberals are panicking. Churches silent. By the way, there's a video I saw in America. There's a church that is not working anymore. The church just went silent. Economy is shaking. And the very foundation they thought was unshakable is now in free fall. And the ones who have survived it all, it is black people. The black Americans, they are still rising, they are still strong, they are still chosen. If I go deeper more, I'll say this, the Bible, African spirituality and ancestral wisdom, they all teach the truth. And black Americans, the descendants of the enslaved, have been praying for centuries. I'm not that spiritual, but I know. I talk to black Americans. We talk to each other. And they are so much spiritual, and I love that. Black Americans, the descendants of the enslaved have been praying for centuries. That's what I was saying. Prayers from plantation field, prayers whispered during beatings, prayers sung through gospel. You see, the gospel of Black Americans, it is top-notch. They praise the God. They pray to the God. In the pastors, they talk about what is happening in America. Prayers shouted during protest, and those prayers did not disappear. It haven't disappeared. They gathered strength. They moved through time. When Trump came, it wasn't just a mistake. It was a physical form of white Americans' arrogance and their punishment. Because guess what? They believed God only listened to them. Because Jesus, they created their own Jesus, white Jesus. White believed that God only listened to them. But the real thing is God listens to the suffering. The real God hears the oppressed. The real God moves with Black people, not against them. Now you're seeing right now white America in panic. Their children are rejecting their culture. Gen Zs are rejecting the white culture. They are copying Black people's culture. The churches are shrinking. The influence globally is fading. Even their own youth are marching for justice, not tradition. That's not just politics. That's spiritual welfare. It's spiritual warfare. Their systems are shaking because God is shifting power. The power is shifting. Can't you see that? And don't be surprised, because the ancestors always said, the first shall be last and the last shall be first. And they have been fast for too long. Now it is time for Black people to shine. Time to rise, time to lead, and time to inherit the land. And all of this began when they laughed at the warnings, when they mocked Black cries, when they bowed to a man who was nothing but a walking curse. And Trump exposed it all. I always say Trump only exposing white supremacy. He has showed how deep white racism goes. He revealed how many white Christians would rather follow hate than justice. He proved that equality was never their goal. He has proved a lot. And now the whole world is watching. Countries around the globe no longer respect America because Trump pulled back the curtain. He's causing wars, creating wars here and here. He just one fight. Trump showed that behind the polished image, there is a broken system. And there was, he just revealed it. And now the God of justice has turned off fear into their reality. Every time I talk, we need to have something to talk about. What do we do now as Black people? Number one, we should recognize that God is still moving with us. The divine justice isn't done. Trump may be one chapter, but the real story is still unfolding. And this is our movement, a movement for Black people, or this is our movement, a movement for Black people across the diaspora to rise, to build, to unite, to speak truth without fear. As Black Americans, I know you no longer have to beg white systems for approval. Their own gods failed them. Their own saviors turned against them. And we, as Black or Black Americans, you no longer have to beg white systems for approval. Now, meanwhile, I'll say this. The God of Black people has preserved us, protected us, and elevated Black people, Black Americans. I love the courage. I love your God. And this is the God of Black people, because Black people, we are the true heritage. We are the true humanity. Because how comes white people, they did bad things to us, but at the end of the day, we still forgive them. We still talk to them. We still work with them. We still work for them. As Black people, we no longer hold grudges or hold grudges in our hearts. I'll say this. Let's support our own businesses. Let's unite as Black people. Protect our own communities. Educate our children to know the truth and build the future we have been praying for. Because the table has turned. And those who thought that they were the judges are now being judged. Some people think that God only listens to white people. Even some Black people are brainwashed to think that white people are closer to God. I leave this with you. Don't see Trump as just a man. See him as a prophecy fulfilled. White America laughed at the suffering of Black people, and now they cry, over the chaos, their own makings, going on and on. Things is happening. Trump is doing things that you even don't know what he's doing, just signing papers, causing chaos and causing wars here and there. So I'll say this. Stand tall as black people because we are the chosen one. We are covered and we are rising. And we need to stick to the truth of unity and everything. Tell me what you think on the comment section about this video. Until next time, peace out.